There we go. So welcome everyone to tonight's question and answer session. Tonight we'll be hearing from the Executive Committee, the Democracy and Accountability Committee and the Green Students Committee. This is your chance to ask any questions you've got and to hear what we've all been doing since our election in July, in this first quarter through to August. So without any further ado, we will first go to the Executive Committee co-chairs, and the first co-chair to go this evening, I believe, is Kelsey. So over to you, Kelsey.
Awesome. Cheers, Isaac. Hey, yeah, I'm Kelsey, and I'll quickly run through my report. I'll try to keep this short, but there's a very long report that I've written here. But yeah, so it's been a really incredible start. We got a great exec committee, and all of anything I'm about to list here is with huge thanks to Jane and to the rest of the committee for all the support and working together. And it's been an incredible team. So I've highlighted here about induction and handover. So as I'm sure you can imagine, the first couple of weeks of our exec and going into August was sort of handover sessions. Mine has been mainly with mine and Jane's mainly been with Rosie, but also delivering some of those sessions as members of the past exec, and also trying to sort of settle in the new exec, settle in processes, the ways we're going to work. And that fed in really nicely to some strategy work that we did in August. So we took 9 members of the exec went off to Birmingham for a weekend to look at not only our 1-year strategy, which is fairly standard and great to be able to do in person, looking at the role of the Young Greens, what we do, what we want to do and what we want to achieve, but also looking a bit further ahead than just our year and looking at kind of what this feeds into more broadly to try and kind of improve continuity between execs. And that's something that we'll continue to work on this term, but that weekend was really good in feeding into that work with the whole exec kind of feeding in. And that goes on to talk about kind of how that progresses, and sort of with Jane, we're leading that work. Also, this past quarter, we've had freshers. So we obviously weren't sure at first whether freshers was going to happen, what it's going to look like. And so I led with Jane and with Sophie and Vic on updating some of the freshers materials. Unfortunately, we couldn't get all of it out. We haven't had any support from the Green Party staff team, which has not been ideal at all, and it's something that we're pursuing. But there's content that's updated, which is good to have. But we also managed to get out some freshers packs, which was amazing. I'm running through this because I realised I haven't got much time. So I've also talked about co-options. So unfortunately, during these past 3 months, we've had some resignations, but also some positions that weren't filled on the exec. So we've been working on co-options, and that involves putting out call-outs. I'm sure some of you have seen, doing some internal hustings and appointing, and that's all. The current ongoing ones are for Equality and Diversity International, so we're ongoing with those. And then there's some other details here about my work as co-chair. As some of you will know, the co-chairs sit on GPEX, which is the Green Party's executive committee. So I've been regularly attending those meetings on behalf of the Young Greens and representing young people and student voices within the Green Party on that committee. That also involved a weekend away. Other things in this report include the organisation and my chairing or co-chairing with Jane of the leadership hustings for the Green Party leadership contest earlier on last month, I think. And also about organising the Young Greens presence, which some of you I hope will have seen at the People's Assembly protest against Tory conference last weekend in Manchester. So there's a lot there. I'm really sorry I've rushed through it, but you're more than welcome to read any of it, and I welcome any questions. But it's been a great 3 months. I want to emphasise how brilliant the team has been and is going to be, and I'm really excited still.
Thank you very much, Kelsey, for that. Now we will go over to the other Executive Committee co-chair, Jane. So over to you.
Thank you, Isaac. I'm going to try and not repeat too much of what Kelsey said, because that's relatively boring. But much like Kelsey, we started with induction, which was a great time to meet all of the team, to kind of induct everyone into the structures and the processes, and how things are organised within the Young Greens. I was also, obviously, as the former Green Students co-convener, I was also doing the handover for Vic and Sophie, our new Green Students co-convener, with Billy helping as well. And it's just amazing to see how the new executive have kind of really got on board, and I'm just so excited about it all. I don't know where I was going next with this. I've completely forgotten my list. The next thing I'm just going to mention is also about admin. So obviously we currently don't have an admin staff support member. So Kelsey and I have been very slowly, admittedly, getting stuff in place to recruit for them, getting a role description signed off, taking feedback from Daisy, who was in that role, working with the staff team to kind of rejig it a little bit, and also doing all of kind of the admin stuff that would normally be happening through the admin inbox, which leads me on to groups. So groups was one of the big things that I wanted to work on this year, and last year as well. So I've continued doing that. I've continued using the new groups database that I started last year, importing all of that, also looking at how we're going to review that, because we're aware that a lot of the information in there is out of date, and looking at our group support process and how we induct new groups, and sort of revamp that a little bit as well, which is really exciting. And we've had, I think, about 3 or 4 new groups start up in sort of the last couple of months, and some new ones that have kind of been bimbling along a little bit, but we'll be getting there eventually, hopefully. The other thing is, as part of the Young Greens, we have to have 2 safeguarding officers. I was appointed as one of the safeguarding officers alongside Kane, who has unfortunately resigned from the executive, and now Lottie's taken it up. So I've been working very closely with the GPEX management coordinators to look at our safeguarding procedures, to review them as well, and make sure that they're up to date. And then I don't know what the next thing to mention, just general support of the executive committee. So obviously we've got a brand new executive this year. Kelsey and I are new co-chairs as well, which is really exciting. So we've been doing a lot of work to support them, to do one-to-ones, to talk about things that executive committee members want to work on over the year, and also to support them in the really, really exciting ideas and plans that they have, and kind of get them in place, which is also leading into the strategy work that we've been doing. But I'm aware that I've got about 10 seconds left, and we're going to be doing a lot more communication and discussion on the strategy stuff much later in the year when we get there. So I'm going to stop now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane, for that. Now we've heard from both executive committee co-chairs, we will be heading over to Rowan for the Treasurer's report.
Thank you very much, Isaac. So yes, we'll start off with the money. So I started my term with an opening balance of £30,349.50, and as of the 31st of August, because we've not got figures for September yet, I think they've been partly delayed in the staff team by conference this month. So our balance is currently 31,651 pence. So we're in a net surplus since the start of my term of around £1,250. All of the exact figures and things are in my printed report. Thank you very much to Jane, Kelsey, Rosie, and Rajiv and Matthew, who I've all spoken to as part of my induction, who've given me a really good rundown into the Green Party's financial processes, where the exec committee is going this year. And I really enjoyed my induction, so thank you very much for that. In terms of committee support, I've assisted with the administration of our strategy weekend, and I'm going to represent the Young Greens in a forthcoming debate on the pension discount rate with the Intergenerational Foundation. With regards to finance, I've processed all of our expenses where needed and have liaised with the finance team to institute various processes and procedures around our budget management and accounting. I've drafted a budget for the coming year involving the precedent set in previous years, our long-term strategy, developed at the strategy weekend, and individual plans where I had one-to-one meetings with each of our project leads. And that budget will be published when it's all finalised, which we're hoping will be in the coming months. I'm reviewing our payment processing to reduce our bank charges and enable donations to be made by card and in person. And I've helped Young Greens to benefit from the Conference Access Fund. In terms of fundraising at conference, I'm organising a raffle and I'm writing a leaflet to insert into all of the delegate packs to attract new regular donors and to culture support throughout the party. And I'm drawing together a fundraising strategy for the year, making use of phone banking, crowdfunding and events, all with the aim of increasing our regular donations. So yeah, thank you all to the rest of the committee for all their support these last few months. It's been a blast, and I'm sure it will be as we move into the rest of the term.
Thank you very much, Rowan, for your report. And now we will take questions for the co-chairs and for treasurer. So if we have any questions for any of these people, please do just raise your virtual hand on Zoom. So first, I think Dylan. So Dylan, if you'd like to go ahead with your question.
Hello, everyone. So my question would be to both co-chairs and the treasurer. What was the biggest difference in what you imagined this role to be from when before you ran, if that makes sense?
Thank you for that, Dylan. So Kelsey or Jane, would you like to take that one?
Do you want to go first, Jane?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I don't know. I think the biggest difference is, this is going to sound so boring, but like the admin, I don't think I quite realized like how much of it there is. Like I enjoy it and it's fine, but it's like I do emails all day at work and then I come home and I just do more emails. But yeah, I would probably say that's the biggest thing. And I think maybe like the workload from it, like it's a lot, which I wasn't quite expecting, but that's gonna ease out when we get a staff member in place. It's just for like the next, like, I don't know how long until we get a staff member. So probably those things.
Thank you, Jane. And Kelsey, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I was going to say the kind of level of admin work, but I think that really does come down to the fact that we haven't got a staff member at the moment as well. So that's one thing, but also not necessarily something I didn't expect, but so much as something that's different, I suppose, if that's okay to kind of quickly. But the kind of the changing capacity of the committee, and so obviously that kind of changes the role of co-chair slightly, because we've got so much more capacity, so many more people, so many more excellent activists with such wonderful skills. I don't want to downplay that, but it's a slightly different role than I think it has been in the past. And so not that I didn't expect that, because I obviously knew those changes were happening, but it's obviously something to get used to, that's not necessarily been done before. But yeah.
And
thank you. That's great. Thank you, both of you. I think up next, we had Nick.
oh, I thought that question was directed at me as well. Or, I mean,
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, feel free to go ahead.
I think the level of responsibility in the role as treasurer is slightly different when you're living it to when you are reading it on a role descriptor on the website. I think is something that I've felt. Although that makes the role, I think, all the more enjoyable, and I really liked the kind of the overview I've been getting of all of the different projects and things that are going on. I would say I wasn't quite prepared for the complexity and the nuance in some of the Green Party's financial systems and ways of working. So I've had lots of time to think about how we might navigate those best in our way forward.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's great. And I think Nick, you had the next hand up.
Hi everyone. My question is mostly to the co-chairs. There's obviously been a significant number of resignations and co-option processes to fulfill those, as well as since the convention, there were not every role was elected to. So there's a lot of space on EC and other bodies. What is your plan moving forward to prevent that happening again, and also tackling to make sure that people feel encouraged to stick around and keep working once they're elected?
Thank you for that question, Nick. I've seen Kelsey, your hand's gone up straight away, so over to you for a response on that.
felt it was fair that I jumped in first as Jane thought last time. Yeah, I think there's a little bit to this. So thanks for this question. I think firstly, it's important to note that in terms of the sort of number of resignations and step downs, there's sort of point about scaling up the committee, and there's always sort of been a couple of resignations and step downs on EC. And I think as we scale up the size of the total committee, that's likely to kind of increase in absolute terms. But I think you're right. That it's something that we need to look at in terms of how we keep people kind of encouraged to stand, encouraged to run for the roles, and then obviously not welcome, but motivated to stay. I don't want to underplay the fact that we're coming out of a global pandemic in some terms, and that's obviously having a massive toll on individuals at the moment, especially. But also, I think this speaks to making sure that our democratic processes are sort of really easily accessible, really well understandable, and really we have real high kind of participation and engagement with our democracy. And I think that's something that we've already talked about in terms of strategy terms, but also kind of in more sort of short-term things as well. And so I think hoping to increase sort of democratic engagement and understanding of how the Young Greens works and what the Young Greens does should help to have sort of more competitive elections and keep people kind of motivated and ready to go. But I think we've had a really excellent, excellent start, excellent team. And people have had to step down for various reasons, and like as always, we wish them all the best and always put sort of people's health and well-being and kind of their own situation first. And I think that's really important. And I'm glad that we can have an environment on the EC where people who are here know, I think, what I hope know, that they can step back and they can look after themselves, because that's obviously most important.
Thank you for your response to that, Kelsey. Jane, do you have a short response on that one too?
Yeah, sure. Just to pick up on the moving forward bit. So obviously DSE options are closing tonight or tomorrow night. I can't remember what day it is, to be honest. But in terms of our currently empty roles, so obviously we have the Young Greens of Colour and the Young Women of Colour role that are currently empty. And we've been trying to sort of find people that want to take up these roles. And we're working really hard to do that. The same with Trans Liberation Officer and with Digital Comms as well, that we'll hopefully be putting co-options out for in the next couple of weeks. We should be co-opting international and E&D sort of in the next week or so. It's partially my fault. I've fallen behind on some of the organising with that. So we are moving forward with that, and sort of, it sounds very anti-democratic to be like tapping people on the shoulder, but making sure that we do get people in for those roles. We had a really good response for international and E&D, and that was really positive to see from a lot of people that haven't really been involved before as well. So there does seem to be a keenness and an eagerness, and I think going forward as well, we're obviously really keen to make sure that we keep those exec members around, and making sure that everybody's able to kind of manage workload, and make sure that they're able to have lives outside of the Young Greens and the executive and do all of the fun things that we will enjoy outside of the Young Greens, because the Young Greens is super fun anyway, but we will do lots of other things too. So making sure that people are able to keep that balance in their lives.
Thank you for your response to that, Jane. And I think that the next hand to go up was Billy. So Billy, if you'd like to go ahead.
Awesome. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I just wanted an update on the recruitment of an admin officer, because obviously I'm a bit worried that it's distracting both co-chairs about vital work. And I'd rather you focus on the more important stuff rather than boring admin. I say boring, though Jane loves it. But
thank you, Billy, for your question. Jane, I see your hands going up, so over to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would really love to have someone in that role as soon as possible. So we've got a role description that's been signed off by the exec. We've discussed it with the staff team. We're currently just waiting on basically Kelsey and myself to put together questions for the, oh my goodness, the word has gone, for the recruitment. And then at that point, we'll be able to move forward. It's mainly just been because I've had like 3 weeks worth of evenings booked up with stuff, and have not been able to look at it. So as soon as I get a free weekend, which I have coming up, and as soon as Kelsey and I are able to sit down, we should be able to move forward on that. It's just been stalled for a little while. As soon as possible is the answer.
Thank you, Jane, for that response. And yeah, I think that the next hand to go up after that was George. So George, if you'd like to give your question.
Yeah, sorry. In the previous report convention from the last treasurer, it was just said that the finance team was getting hard to reach and that we weren't getting our actuals. I just wanted to know if there's been any progress on that, basically. So I guess that's to the treasurer.
Thank you. So over to you, Rowan, for that.
Yes, we are getting our actuals. Those figures that I've got in my report were taken from our actuals. We get them on a regular basis, but it takes a week or so after the end of the month for all of the things to be processed. So that's why we haven't got last month's actuals yet, is because I wrote this report just as they were all being done.
Thank you very much. And I think that the final hand is from Josh. So over to you, Josh.
Yeah, the co-chairs mentioned that they hadn't received much support from the party with freshers packs and stuff. And also one of your reports said that you hadn't been told about political committee meetings, and I was just wondering how, without violating any privacy guidelines, if you could outline maybe why you haven't been receiving as much support as you would have liked from GPEX and other relevant bodies.
Thank you. I see both co-chairs' hands have gone up. I think, Jane, yours was just before, so over to you.
Okay, yeah, we're both keen to answer this question, apparently. Yes, so I think this is a mixture of different things. Freshers packs, it was primarily because the membership team just didn't have the capacity. They have assured us that they will be paying for everything that we had to pay for, so that won't be coming out of our budget, which is good. We did ask for staff support because we didn't have an admin staff support member, and we're basically just told no, we don't have the capacity to do that right now, which is really frustrating for us. But since then we've had meetings with the head of the membership team, Chanel, and she's very keen to work with us to learn more about the Young Greens as well, and to make sure that we're able to be supported. And I think for us it's a learning for next time to make sure that we get in there really, really early on this and make sure that we say, you know, look, we need this extra capacity, we need this help at this time because of the freshers packs. And obviously the staff team have got a lot going on right now in terms of a leadership election happening, which nobody quite expected, and COP and all sorts of different things. So there's all of that going on. In terms of Polcom, this was literally, we just got forgotten from the mailing list, which Kelsey followed up on. And then as soon as it was followed up on, like a couple of days later, we got an email saying, I'm so sorry, you're on the list now. So I think we missed like 1 or 2 meetings. So yeah, that's the explanation from both. It's not necessarily a GPEX thing. It's mainly just people being busy, I think, if that answers the question.
Thank you. Jane, Kelsey, do you have anything you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, I just add really quickly to that. I think, like, I agree with all of those points, and I think they're all the kind of things I was going to make. But I think what's also important to highlight here is I don't want to underplay how busy the staff team is, as Jane has said. And so, like, it's probably a mix of like us getting in there really early, but also making sure that we know what we can ask for and really pushing for it. And I also wanted to highlight how fantastic our handover from this is relevant, but our handover from Rosie was Rosie and Ellie before, for like making us aware that these things like are things that, you know, we're invited to. So for Polcom, for example, Rosie, you know, giving us that handover and letting us know they're things that we are meant to be at and we have a seat at and we have sort of precedent for is super helpful for us then pushing for this now. So just a massive thanks to Rosie for the handover.
Thank you, Kelsey. And I'm just going to go for the final question on this. One final question for these people from Nick.
Yes, so this question is to Rowan, who's doing finance. Great job, because we always like seeing people actually be in that role. So currently we have 30K a year floating around, which not particularly financial myself, but I would consider that resource that we're not taking advantage of. Is there a plan for how we plan to use that, or is there a specific reason that we're holding back that amount of money? Obviously, there's the new staff role that will come in that will maybe eat away at reserve slowly, but the fact that we're making 1,000 surplus in 1 month puts us in a very strong position. And I wonder if we could be even more effective if we're spending a little bit more liberally.
Thank you, Nick. Over to you, Rowan.
No is the short answer. There isn't a particular reason why we are holding that much in reserves. I'm going to hopefully institute a reserves policy that will give us a bit more rationale about kind of how much we hold in reserves and why. As I'm preparing this budget, that's something that I am keeping in mind and pushing people to do. But obviously we don't want spending where it's not going to lead to any greater impact. So I'm still focusing on keeping that spending where it's most beneficial.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Rowan. And thanks to the EC co-chairs and treasurer for doing your reports and for answering all those questions. Now I'm going to hand over to Dan, who's my fellow DAC co-chair, to lead the next section of this.
Thanks, Isaac. Can I just check everyone can hear me okay? There's some nods, that's good. And just to remind all of you keen beans that there will be general questions at the end for all EC members. So if you have a more general question you think could be better answered by multiple people or multiple roles on the exec, then please keep it till the end. So next we are going to be headed to our elections officer, and that is Darren. So Darren, you have 3 minutes.
Brilliant, thanks Dan. I just wanted to start by saying like a thank you, I guess, to everybody else on the exec. It's been a really fun couple of months getting to know everybody and getting started with everyone. And also a thank you to Rosie and everybody who organised the sort of the handover and the training sessions, because it really is testament to how much work went into that now we have a really focused and politically aligned and sort of inspiring group of people on the exec who've got like a lot of ambition for the rest of the year. So it's awesome to be part of that group. But I'll stop blabbering onto the election stuff. So in terms of elections work, it's actually been pretty slow on my part, and I apologise for that, but we are full steam ahead as of the last couple of weeks. I have drafted up a terms of reference, which is basically like the basic starting block for producing our election strategy for the 2022 local elections and mayor elections. And that's going to be discussed with the exec tomorrow. So that should set out the sort of the purpose, the scope, and like a timeline for finalizing an election strategy. I'm really keen to make sure that it's sort of, even though I'm the one doing the work on it, that it's more sort of led by the exec and I'm working with everyone rather than leading anything, to put it like that. So yeah, so it'll be cool to discuss that in the next meeting with the exec tomorrow and sort of get that on the way. Hopefully we have a strategy together and can communicate that with everybody very shortly, and it's exciting to see what we come together for the next election. In terms of election support that we can offer before sort of the more substantial package that we're putting together, then if anybody is looking to be a candidate or they know somebody who's a candidate who has perhaps a by-election coming up, there's been people getting in contact with me already so far this year who are already running action days, then yeah, absolutely get in contact with us. We can help share your action days through our socials. We can help put you in contact with local members in your groups, and just make sure that you're making those contacts and getting things going. But otherwise, yeah, that's all I've got to say on elections. And yeah, this is the next person. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Darren. I would say that you've got like another minute left, so if you felt the need to say anything more, you're more than welcome to now. However, if anybody has any questions for Darren, because you are the elections officer, I've just spotted a hand, and that is from Dylan.
Hi, Darren. So well, not last year, in May, technically, in last term of the elections, the Young Greens had a bit of an issue finding all Young Green candidates who are running all across the country. So how are you aiming to rectify that and make sure that we get all Young Green candidates the support they need?
Thanks, Dylan. So yeah, I don't think I can really comment on last year's exec and everything, but I'm keen to, as part of this strategy, try and include support for all Young Green candidates, not just our target candidates. The process does involve communicating with different members in the National Party, and it could have been just sort of a hiccup with communicating all of the Young Greens support. It can be quite complicated finding that, but I am keen to sort of reach out as far as possible as part of our strategy, and get in contact with as many Young Greens as possible, and offer support to all Young Greens if possible, at least in some capacity. But yeah, full details of that sort of get released as the final strategy is agreed with the exec. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Darren, and thank you for the question, Dylan. I think if that's everything for our elections officer, we will go to the next role, which is our press officer, which is Orla. So Orla, over to you. You will have 3 minutes.
Hello. Yeah, so I started off like everybody else with handover things. So obviously I met with Kelsey and Jane. I also met with Faye and Isabel, who did press and comms on the last exec respectively. And those conversations were really, really good, really productive. I spoke to Faye quite a lot about the projects that she'd managed to kind of start, but needed kind of working on. So yeah, I've got things like the Speakers Network that I'm kind of have taken up from her. Also spoke with Isabel quite a lot about how press and comms can kind of work together, which was also really productive. Quite early on, Kelsey, Jane and I met with Molly, who does external comms for the wider Green Party, and that was a really productive meeting. We planned kind of how we could collaborate and what kind of help we can ask for from the party, and what they're willing to provide with us, and they did give us some help on a press release recently, so that's like a good relationship to be working on and keep building. So kind of more behind the scenes, I've spent some time working on a kind of more tailored to the Young Greens like press list for things like when we do actions and when we have kind of campaigns, more youth oriented outlets for that. That's also something that Faye kind of started, so I've been picking up on where she left off. We have also been in contact with Green World. There's a new editor for Green World who is really, really keen to get some more voices on the platform, so young voices, and especially the voices of some of our liberation officers. So that's something that I need to follow up on and speak to the wider committee about, but really positive conversations happening there. We've got a piece that should be going up on Green World in the next couple of days, so that'll be really good to get people to read kind of more about what the Young Greens are doing. We obviously went to the People's Assembly protest in Manchester. We put together a press list for that, and we got some take up for that. So on the day, Kelsey and Jane gave some quotes for Global Radio. So yeah, that's good exposure for the Young Greens. Obviously, we haven't had a comms officer for the past few weeks, so I've been helping out with that. I've been doing the Instagram, kind of putting together some posts and things like that for the youth strikes and the leadership elections, and obviously the Manchester protest. So I've been enjoying getting involved with the Instagram. And then aside from that, I've been just kind of getting involved where I can across the committee. Yeah, things like talking about what we're going to do surrounding COP26, 30 under 30, just helping out where I can. That's everything.
Thank you very much, Orla. Does anybody have any questions for Orla? I can't see any hands at the moment. I'll give it another second or two, and then we will get on to our next person. You're lucky, Orla. You don't have any questions. Yeah. Stick around to the end for when the general one's taking place. So we'll go to the next role in our report, which is our campaigns officer, and that is Zach.
Cheers. Yeah, I'm just going to run through quickly what I wrote down on my report. So yeah, in August I went to strategy weekends. I'm not going to talk about this too much because it's been mentioned before, but it was really fun trying to plan our like immediate 1 year goals, but also 3 and 5 year goals for the future that we hope the future executives will be carrying out as well. So I've also been active within the UK student movement for an organisation called Red Square Movement. It's a very new organisation at the moment, but I've been ensuring that there's a green voice in that room. It's got a lot of links with Young Labour as well, so I'm not going to say balance out, but make sure it's not dominated by Labour voices in there, ensuring that there's Young Greens in that room and helping the planning and strategy with that as well. Along with a couple other Young Greens activists as well who aren't on the executive committee. Protesting the Tory party conference. Yes, I like Kelsey and a lot of other people. I attended the People's Assembly demo as well. I helped out a little bit with the planning of that, mainly just by communicating what the People's Assembly were planning and what they were doing, passing that on to people like Kelsey and Jane in the Young Greens. I was planning on walking with the Young Greens, but left my phone in an Uber a couple of days before. So I had to walk with some friends from Manchester instead and managed to miss everyone that was walking with the Young Greens at that conference protest, unfortunately. People and Planet fossil free campaign. So the last year's executive didn't have a campaigns officer, but I have spoken with Rosie, and something they wanted to do was to support People and Planet's fossil free campaign, which is, I think it's targeted at the way universities are complicit in the fossil fuel industry. We wanted to do some research into how much money universities put into fossil fuel industries, how much they collaborate with them on jobs fairs, that sort of stuff. That hasn't gone any further than just sort of some early conversations, because I haven't actually had a handover yet. But yeah, that's something that's sort of ongoing at the moment. One of our 1 year goals was to get regular articles and media outlets. And I think it was last Monday, I had a piece published in Novara Media that was about a fresher's guide to renting in halls off the back of the rent strike work I did last year. And I was encouraging membership of tenants unions in that and stuff like that. Something that I didn't put in my report that I remembered as I was sitting here, Sean Berry got in touch with me September, I think, and on the 20th of September, me and some other councillors and Sean had a meeting about a campaign she's running on housing rights, tenants' rights, rent controls, that sort of stuff. Sort of like how she envisions that campaign running and how Young Greens can help support that. I'm well aware that I've gone well below the 3 minutes, but I've got nothing else to say.
Josh, you've just done 3 minutes and 10 seconds, so it was absolutely bang on. So don't worry about that whatsoever. Does anyone have any questions for? I've just called you Josh. Your name's Zach. I apologise. I've just realised that while I looked at the list. I'm trying to read who's put their hands up at the same time. I think it was Dylan's hand first. So we'll go with Dylan. Over to you for your question.
Hello, me again. So in the absence of an equality and diversity officer on the committee, it's increasingly important that all members talk to the liberation officers and liberation groups about what they can do for equality campaign. So what have you been doing, or what are you planning to do to put forward some more liberation group campaigns into wider Young Green circulation?
So we haven't had any specific campaigns on anything relating to the liberation groups. There's the transphobia and stuff like that. But because we haven't had any specific campaigns for that and no one's reached out to me to talk about any sort of specific campaigns, I haven't sort of needed to talk to any of the liberation groups. But obviously if that stuff came up or I wanted to run a campaign, then 100% I'm going to reach out and talk to them. But yeah, if people want to do campaigns like that, please do get in touch, because I'd love to get involved with it. We just haven't sort of been doing that at the moment.
Thanks, Zach. I got your name right this time. Excellent. I think Josh's hand was next. No, I'm saying the word Josh again. It's George.
I think Nick was first actually, but I'll ask anyway. Basically, the last exec term we passed a ditch corporate financing campaign. Is that work still ongoing, or is that like been sidelined in favour of like supporting People in Action's campaign? People and Planet.
Really sorry, I didn't catch like the first half of that question.
Sorry, for the last exec term we passed a ditch corporate financing campaign. Is work on that still ongoing, basically?
Because I haven't had a handover yet, I haven't really been able to continue any work per se of the previous exec. Like if I get a handover, when I get a handover, And when I find out what specifically that involves, then like, yeah, I'm sure, but I haven't been doing anything with that at the moment, unfortunately.
Thanks, George, for your question. Nick, I'm sorry if your hand was up before George's. Over to you for your question.
It's all good. Considering you haven't had a handover so far and it's been 3 months, what steps are you going to take to, because it might be that there isn't a handover coming, and obviously we as the Young Greens have elected you from when you start, so yeah, are you planning to like take initiative and find out what you need to know in order to help continue those campaigns, and also what campaigns are you planning to run in the rest of the year? We're familiar that you are an excellent person for us to have if we want to talk about rent strikes, but it's important that obviously our campaigns cover lots of Young Green things and not just the areas that you're already involved with.
Yes, so I mean there is a handover coming, because there wasn't a campaigns officer last year and it was sort of spread across lots of different roles. It's been quite difficult, I think, on the people that are supposed to be handing over to me to find time to hand over to me. So like there is one coming, I don't know when, but I have been chasing people on that and they've been saying that it will happen. In terms of the campaigns, we want to run a campaign increasing union membership, so that's trade unions and tenants unions as well, supporting the People and Planet's fossil-free campaign. I think there's stuff we will probably do around COP, but I'm not too sure yet what that would be. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. There's the Sean Berry's rent control campaign as well. Off the top of my head, I think that's all I can think of. But again, if people want to run campaigns, I'm more than happy to help support them, or if people got ideas, I would love to hear from them as well.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Does anyone have any further questions for Zach? Nope. Then we will go on to the next role, which is our events officer, which is shared by Kate and Lottie.
Yeah, I'm going to go first and then Kate will take over. But yeah, just a shout out to everyone on EC and DC. You're all wonderful and we've really enjoyed working with you the last few months. We've been keeping busy, but in a good way. So we've been, firstly induction stuff. We've attended all the induction Zoom sessions, like training sessions that were relevant to us, and had one-on-ones with Jane and Kelsey. And because there wasn't really an events officer role before, like specifically events, we've made sure to look over all like the previous documents from the last exec, like especially like the feedback from events and evaluation from events. So we know kind of like lessons learned going forward. One of which is definitely just doing things far in advance, which I think I would say we've been pretty good with so far. So we've attended I believe you've attended every single exec meeting, and we've contributed to the strategy. I couldn't go to the weekend, but I made sure to come back with Zoom sessions and stuff. We've met with Rowan, our treasurer. So we've got to discuss the budget going forward. So we've kind of got an idea of what that will look like in terms of events for the next coming year. And of course, we always Zoom and message each other to check in with each other, but so we can actually make sure we've divided like responsibilities of all the jobs that we've got to do. Beauty of having two people is that's quite a good advantage. And Troy conference, we helped with that. We coordinated like linking up BEC to Manchester Young Greens where we were at before, and we drafted emails and social media to promote the protest and specifically Young Greens' presence at the protest. And also something I completely forgot to actually add into the report was that I'm, as Jane mentioned, I'm now deputy safeguarding officer as well. So that'll like further ensure that the events meet safeguarding rules. So yeah, I'll pass over to Kate and she'll just quickly run through what we've done for conference so far.
Yeah. So the main stuff, like conference has been really a big part of like our planning and taking up a lot of our time in terms of just lots of making sure we're really prepared for it. planning for our meeting slot, liaising with the conferences team to understand more about when that is. We've been in touch with people on Planet to come speak at that for us. We have organised a location for the social afterwards that we're going to hold. And we've done just kind of various organising behind the scenes to make sure that like we feel that everyone at EC is going to be kind of organised and happy to like run the stall yeah, things like that, and communicating about the Access Fund. These things are all in our report, but basically, and we've got lots more. Obviously, conferences now in 2 weeks' time, so we're going to be doing a lot more like final bits of planning and finalising things in advance of that. But yes, feel free to read our report for more details, and yeah, let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much to Kate and Lottie. So does anybody have any questions for our events officers? I can see some clapping, but I can't see any hands up. Oh, I can see a hand up. Chris and Rosie. Do you have a question each, or is it just one of you?
Oh, I just had a question, sorry. And I should probably apologise because it's me that was supposed to hand over to Zach, so we will get that done soon. The question I had is, I'm just interested to hear what, amazing report and really exciting to hear, and imagine that conference is taking up loads of like planning and time, but I just wondered if you'd had any thoughts on the autumn general meeting and what that might look like. We've only ever been able to do it online in the past, and just interested to hear what you're thinking on it.
Yeah,
Kate,
I promised to go first. So we have been thinking about it, is in our minds. We have just been like really, like conference has been very much at the forefront, trying to sort everything for that. I think we definitely, our ambition is to hold something in person. We've been making sure we chat to DIC about like kind of when constitutionally we're meant to have that, things with thinking about like the dates of it, in relation to uni terms, but I think the ambition is to definitely hold something in person, and obviously we were both at the last one, the Resist Tory Rule one, that we thought was pretty good, so take some learnings from that and things. But, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was in person, sorry.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Great, thank you, Rosie, for the question. Does anybody else have any questions for us? No, and I'm going to go on to the next role, which we have someone here for, which is Johan, who is our political education officer. I believe Johan is here. Do you have 3 minutes?
Cool, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Hope we're all doing well. So yeah, activist training and political education, as has been similar with other people, obviously starting off with handovers and things like that. So thank you very much to Jane Robb, who is the sort of my equivalent in the last exec. We had a really, really good conversation about kind of her plans, and she shared about 105 different things that she'd already been doing, which just made my life a lot easier in terms of thinking about how to get things organized. But also big thanks to other Jane and Kelsey, obviously, and Rosie and various people that I've had conversations with. So basically the main things I've been working on, primarily I've been working on sort of planning political education activities for this year. So I've presented a sort of proposal to EC about a like what is green politics kind of political education series, and that's kind of breaking down the pillars of green politics so that we all have a bit of a better understanding of kind of what is green politics, what's unique about it, and we can kind of upskill all of our activists. What I'm kind of planning on doing with that is, once we've held a series kind of based on the last couple of the format from the last couple of years of having speakers and Q&A sessions with people within the Green movement, both, you know, within the party, but also kind of separate from the party, so that we can learn and grow in that sense. But once we've had those talks, is to kind of use the learning from that and try and distill it into an easily accessible way for all members of the Young Greens, and also, you know, in the wider movement, to be able to access it, because obviously there's only a certain number of people that are going to turn up to Zoom calls and stuff like that. So hopefully we can sort of spread the word and build on the activity that's happened over the last couple of years, which has been really, really good. The main other thing has been working on sort of initial planning of 30 under 30. I've got a proposal, or we're looking at some sort of options of how to deliver 30 under 30 and how we kind of want to best achieve our aims there. I think it's a good approach to sort of look at how you can do things creatively and how we can improve on previous years and what are the things we really want to work on. So that is under discussion at the moment, and we'll be discussing that at the EC meeting next week. Tomorrow. And then the other part of my portfolio is to do with activist training. That has been a little bit overshadowed so far on political education, but in my head at the moment, I'm kind of looking at trying to think of what a sort of an activist journey could be, kind of thing. So looking for, to try and inspire people and get them engaged with political education, and then trying to really work on the specific sort of skills that they need to become, effective candidates, or to get in the media and all those kind of things that we've seen over the last few years, and hopefully build on that as well. So hoping to bring a proposal to the EC shortly. So yeah, I think that's pretty much most of the things. Obviously contributing to the strategy weekend, which is really good, and trying to just support the exec in a more general sense as well. But happy to hear any questions that people have.
Thank you, Johan. Any questions from the floor? And just a reminder, we will do general EC questions at the end as well. So if there's a more general one, then please stick around. I don't see any hands, so that's okay. I'm going to go to the next role I have on the report now, which is Neve, our disability officer, and I don't believe Neve is here. So I believe it is my role here now to sit and read what Neve has written in their report. So the Disability Liberation Officer is a new role within the Young Greens EC, and so I've spent a lot of time navigating and getting to grips with the role. Alongside this, I have also attended EC meetings when available, regularly contributed to decisions made within the executive Slack channels, attended and contributed to strategy planning meetings, attended and hosted multiple co-option interviews for a new E&D officer. So that was from Neve. I won't take questions because I'm not sure how I would answer them. And I will go on to the next report that I have here, which is our under 18s officer, which is Kirsty. So Kirsty, over to you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, so okay, you can hear me. Okay, so first off, I'll obviously just thank everyone on the EC, especially the co-chairs, for all their hard work and putting together a good foundation for an executive this year. So yeah, thanks everyone for that. And yeah, onto my report. So in my election statement, I talked about things like environmental education and liberation education in schools, and trying to raise the platform of the Young Greens and the under 18 Greens through that, and talking to green councils and stuff like that. So I basically started with kind of learning the basics of what environmental education is, how you could realistically implement it, or kind of the first steps that maybe that once I go to green councils and talk to them about what impact they might have on the schools in their local area, I kind of have an idea of what I'd be asking them to do, because otherwise I'd just be like, oh, do environmental education, go, I'm not getting involved. So I'm basically just doing research on that to begin with. So some of the options are kind of setting up environmental societies in schools, or subscribing to the Eco Schools program, which is part of Keep Britain Tidy, or just kind of general ideas of the 4 C's. So that's curriculum, campus, community, culture. So just kind of a more general holistic approach, I suppose, to environmentalism. I haven't done as much research on the kind of liberation education as I should have, mainly because through experience in my own school, I have kind of a better idea of what kind of things I will be talking to councillors about and what kind of that consists of. But obviously there is room to be always learning, so I should have done more, and I will be doing more in kind of the future. So also myself and the under 18 Greens did a lot of work for the exam results days and kind of responding to that. So with the help of Vic, one of our Green Student Committee co-conveners, who kindly wrote the script, we then made a shareable video, which is on social media. So yeah, that's good. And yeah, and then I also attended the strategy weekend, have been attending meetings, and I think probably not been as active as I should have been, but I will improve on that in the future. So yeah.
Thanks very much, Kirsty. And I see Dylan has a hand raised. This is deja vu. Over to you, Dylan.
Hello again, it's me. This time, for total clarity, because I'm asking the question, I am currently the chair of the Under 18 Greens, so no collusion happening here. What do you see as your role with interacting with the Under 18 Green Committee? So myself, you, and William, and the wider EC and Green Path and like green structures almost.
So I suppose I see it as kind of a, like, I mean, obviously I'm like the representative of under 18s for the committee. So any kind of quick questions or kind of like brief things that don't necessarily need kind of consultation, that would just kind of be brief, that would be my role. And potentially trying to reach out to bring opportunities from the wider Green Party to the under 18 Greens, which obviously haven't done much of in this quarter, but definitely in the future will be happening a lot more. And definitely with upcoming education announcements and things, I definitely think I would see my role as kind of like actively interacting with the necessary figures to be like, okay, we want you, can you work with the under 18 Greens? Here's what we can do this, we can help you, like this kind of thing, and kind of bringing these opportunities as someone who's on the executive and might be able to kind of pull a few more strings, I suppose, is the right way of putting it, I don't know, but yeah.
Thank you, Kirsty. Does anybody else have any other questions? No? Then I will just quickly run through the list of reports that we don't have, which are mostly vacant positions. So there were no reports submitted for digital comms, equality diversity officer, our international officer, people of colour officer, trans officer, women officer, women of colour officer, because those positions are vacant, and we didn't receive a report from our LGBTIQA+ officer. So the Green Students Committee reports are lower down in the file if you are looking at it at the moment, and I'm going to hand over to Isaac, who is going to chair the next bit of our session.
Thank you, Dan. So we're now on to the Democracy and Accountability Committee part of this call. And then after this, we'll get on to the Green Students Committee co-conveners. So if you're not aware, DAC, or the Democracy and Accountability Committee, is responsible for upholding the rules of the Young Greens, running accountability sessions like this, making sure that members have the chance to hold all our elected representatives to account, as well as running democracy sessions like the annual general meeting and convention. So without any further ado, I will get on with the committee technical report. You can fully view this on the document. I'm just going to run through some of the highlights, but I won't bore you with every single minor amendment that we've made to the ruling documents. So the Democracy and Accountability Committee currently consists of Dan Taylor, Isaac Searle, Josh Morris-Blake and Ash Ruth. Billy Wessel resigned from DAC in August, and we really thank Billy for all their work on DAC during that period, and really appreciate everything they're doing in the Young Greens. Co-options have been open twice to fill this remaining position. And if anyone on this call is interested, co-options are open until I think 10 p.m. tonight. So get your applications in tonight if you're interested in that. DAC has not yet added entries to the record of structural procedures. or ROSPs. We've made quite a few minor textual amendments to the ruling documents that are all grammatical or spelling changes or numbering changes. DAC also reports that the Executive Committee voted to remove the safeguarding and safe spaces entries in the record of organisational statements, and that we as DAC authorised and ratified these decisions, and that simultaneously EC voted to add updated safeguarding and safe spaces entries to the record of organisational statements, and that we as DAC authorised and ratified these decisions. So all of these new policies came into effect as of Thursday, the 7th of October, 2021, after a one-day lead-in period after DAC agreement the day before. So that is the committee technical report here for DAC. For DAC, we will do all of our reports and then have time for questions at the very end, as there's not so many of us on this committee. So I will hand it over to you, Dan, now for your report.
There's a role reversal. Thank you, Isaac. So this is as many of you know, it's my first time working within the Democracy and Accountability Committee and working with the Young Greens Exec Committee. So it's been a bit of a learning curve for me for the past 3 months, but one that I've really enjoyed. Following election to DAC in July, I've attended all of our DAC meetings. I've also attended as many of the EC meetings as possible in order to develop strong working relationships with the EC. Following Billy's resignation, I put myself forward to become co-chair alongside Isaac and was voted to be co-chair. So I've really enjoyed having a little bit more responsibility and trying to bring my experience to the role. More recently, I've taken the lead on organising this session and also our co-option call out and learning Action Network. Thank you to Jane for teaching me how to use Action Network. It is very new to me. And then also I've supported Josh, who's done some good work in convening very quickly a complaints and disputes subcommittee, who we've also met. I feel like we've dealt with the minor DAC queries that we've received from the EC with a measured and considerate approach. And I also think that within DAC, we've developed quite early on a really open culture where we can just express our thoughts and discuss ideas and opinions on particular things, which makes it for a really enjoyable working relationships with my fellow DAC members. So I'm excited for what we have planned for the rest of the year. We're working with the co-chairs and some on EC to think about how we can develop our democracy and our processes further and make them even more radical. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you very much, Dan, for that. And now I will hand over to myself and my co-chair's report. So since re-election to DAC back in July, I was selected internally as co-chair, first alongside Billy and then alongside Dan. After convention, I updated the Young Greens Democracy platform with all of the changes since convention and motion status updates. This included contacting the German Greens in German to resolve a technical issue on the site. We also updated the Constitution and standing orders with all of the changes from convention, plus minor textual amendments. I've attended all bar one DAC meetings, the one of which I couldn't get back for because my two buses in a row were cancelled, and the vast majority of EC meetings to make sure that we've got really strong working relationships. I also led on the induction for new DAC and EC members in terms of the role of DAC and the accountability and democratic process side of things. So I ran an introductory session for EC members, which included a Q&A on our structures and democracy. I also helped run the first DAC meeting alongside DAC members from the last year's term. Also, I've tried to support all members of DAC as best as possible, as the only member now on the committee who's done it before. And I also want to know how quickly the Complaints and Disputes Subcommittee has been set up this year. So thank you to Josh for your work convening this and also inducting all the subcommittee members really quickly. And also thank you to the Young Greens members, because I think we had a record number of volunteers this year to be part of this group. So 3 months in, I'm really happy with how we work and get on as a committee and as a team whilst doing our job. So yeah, I'd really like to thank my fellow DAC members and the members of EC, including Green Students Committee co-conveners, for contributing such a positive culture and great working relationships. So that's my report done. And now I would like to hand over to Josh. Josh, so over to you.
Thanks, Isaac. And I'm going to be quick because my voice is going a little bit. So I won't repeat any of the DAC-wide stuff. I'll just say what I've done personally. So in terms of the amendments to the Constitution, the particular one was there were still quite a few references to the SPC, which was the old committee before DAC. So they were all removed, which was nice and helpful. And then straight after election, we basically agreed that getting on with co-opting the Complaint and Dispute Subcommittee would be a priority because last year it took a very long time. So we kick-started the process according to Article 5 of the Constitution, sent out emails, and we got a grand total of 6 applicants, which was infinitely more than we had the year before. And so we actually had to vote in a special meeting in the beginning of September to decide on the 4 strongest candidates. The 2 other candidates have been placed on a reserve list. So in the event of a complaint, then if there is a conflict of interest or something like that, then one of the reserve members can be put onto the committee for the foreseeable future. And since then, because perhaps unsurprisingly, we haven't received a complaint yet, I've been doing some more work related to engagement with Young Greens Democracy. I made a couple of PDF easy read guides on the executive committee and the DAC, which I put on Green Spaces. And at some point, I'm hoping to convert them into more accessible social media based sites and forms as well. After that, before my voice goes, I recently moved to Cambridge for uni, and the Cambridge Young Greens Committee, Jane will know this. Thanks for helping kickstart it again, Jane. Yeah, they very eager to get more involved with the party, and so I arranged a meeting with them. I basically gave them a full debrief of how the Young Greens works, which they're all pleased to know about, and hopefully they will all be standing for roles next May. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh, for that. Ash, Ruth is also on DAC. There wasn't a report submitted from Ash, but now we will move on to the Green Students Committee. And then, as we said, we'll have some questions. In fact, no, before that, we're doing questions for DAC. So if anyone has any questions for DAC, then please raise your hands now, your virtual hands. Billy, I think you were first, so over to you.
So last term, relationships between the exec and DAC were sometimes strained, to put it at the very least. How are relationships this term, and what have you done differently to improve that relationship, if it has improved?
Thank you, Billy, for your question. Dan, I see your hand's gone up straight away. Do you want to respond?
Yeah, I was just going to say I can't speak to what happened last time out between DAC and EC, but I think this time round we've got a really good working relationship. I feel like we are listening to EC in terms of DAC. We're listening to EC and what they need, how they need the democracy to work, and what they would like to see out of it. And they're listening to us in terms of how it works and how it's structured, and coming and asking questions. And I think that that's been positive, and it feels like it's only going to continue to be positive, and that's going to hopefully lead to I think, better democracy going forward, because we're going to be working on what we need together to make Young Greens work better, but also work within the constitution and work within everything that we've set out in our record of the roos and the robs. There you go.
Thank you, Dan. And yeah, I just add that quickly. I think it's really good relationship this year, and I think we will have really good communication. I also think, like, for the vast majority of last year, it was pretty good as well. But yeah, it's really good to see this year getting really good, solid start going on. Yeah, so thank you for that question. Nick, I've seen your hand's gone down, so I don't see any more questions for DAC. So yeah, we will move on to Green Students Committee. So first of all, we have Sophie's report. Now, Sophie's not here tonight, so I will just summarise their report and read it out to you. So work within the Green Students Committee. Sophie's used social media to address issues facing GCSE and A-level students on results days, has organised the design and printing of materials for Freshers Packs, have organised the sending of Freshers Packs to existing and new student groups, as well as supporting committees with their preparation for Freshers and Welcome Fairs, have planned and carried out advertising for co-opted committee roles, discussed and established criteria for a diverse and representative Green Students Committee, started to plan Justice for Students social media campaign, and then within the Executive Committee, they've attended the strategy weekend to discuss priorities and agenda for the next 1, 3 and 5 years, have attended fortnightly Executive Committee meetings to report on Green Students Committee activity and ensure strong links between the committees, and have also contributed to Executive Committee comms surrounding GCSE and A-level results. So that is Sophie's report, and over to you, Victoria, last but not least, for yours.
Thank you very much. I'm really sorry for my voice. I'm feeling a bit ill today. But I just wanted to thank the committee, first of all, for their great work for the last couple of months. Just to summarize quickly, I want to talk about my handover. I wanted to thank Billy and Jane for their wonderful handover. This was my first time in a committee role, so it was really helpful and I really thank them for it. I attended the strategy weekend. I found that really useful. It helped Sophie and I sort our priorities for this year. We're going to have 3 campaigns. We're going to mainly focus on justice for students. We're going to start working in the next couple of weeks on getting Young Greens into student union roles, and then also just carry on fighting for our housing rights as students. Freshers came around really quickly, and also to thank Jane and Kelsey for their great work, considering what a messy situation that was. I distributed the Freshers Packs, the posters, flyers and stickers to multiple locations across England. And I updated some of the Freshers content and made some improvements. Also, I did quite a lot of admin work, trying to help new societies get on their feet for Freshers, and also helped with some advice for Freshers stalls. And finally, Sophie and I are doing interviews for our co-options tomorrow, which is something is really, really exciting. Really looking forward to it. And hopefully, as soon as we got our committee, we'll get on our feet. And we're really excited to continue with our campaigns as soon as that's done.
Thank you very much. So now we've got a chance to ask any questions to Vic on Green Students Committee. So over to you, Dylan.
Never mind.
Yeah, no worries. So if there's no questions specifically for Green Students Committee, Then now we've got just under 10 minutes for any general questions that you've got left for anyone. So yeah, Dylan, if you just specify who your question's for.
There we go.
So before Dylan, I've just noticed we've got a couple of submitted questions too that we'll go through at the end. That I've got a couple from our Action Network signups. So just to make everyone aware. But Dylan, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. So first of all, I would just like to, on behalf of the Under 18 Greens Committee, to thank everyone on EC, on DAC, and on Green Students Committee for the amazing work you've done so far this quarter. And we look forward to working with you in the future. And the second question, obviously I'm a bit biased on my questions, is primarily for Green Students Committee, but also for anyone who wants to answer it. How do you see your connections with the youngest members of the Young Greens evolving over the next year, and what do you plan to do to strengthen and develop those connections?
Thank you for that question, Dylan. So first we'll go to Victoria, and if there's anyone on EC who also wants to answer that question, then just put your hand up and we'll come to you after.
Thank you very much. That's a really good question. We want to ensure that A-levels and results, just the actual exams are not going to be messed up like the last couple of years. So we're going to ensure that we got an important comms towards it. And also we're going to try and get more people involved. We got a couple of the people in applying for the committee that are under 18s, which is really exciting. And hopefully we'll be able to, when we have more voices, also have more tailored approach for this year.
Thank you very much. Orla, I think that you are next.
Hey, yeah, thank you for the question. I was needing to get in touch with you, Dylan, because I'm looking to kind of widen the people that I ask for when we get kind of writing assignments and things like that for the Young Greens. I'd really like to get more perspective. So I will answer this now and say, like, yeah, I really want to get in touch with you and like make sure I'm getting these kind of opportunities to you guys, because obviously you've got like a unique perspective as like the youngest members. So yeah, I'll be DM sliding soon.
Thank you, Orla. And finally, a quick one from Kelsey as well.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Sorry. I was waiting to say as well on this that it's maybe not something so concrete, but I think it's really exciting this year that we've got the under 18 officer on the exec. So that gives us another way of kind of making sure that voices of under 18s are represented in the kind of national work. And I'm really excited that feed in, but like obviously that's a new role. So completely understandably, it's taking time to kind of work out what that looks like in kind of more materials, not quite the right word, but kind of in an organizing sense. But that's a really exciting opportunity, and I'm really excited to see how that role develops and how we can make sure we use that to make sure that the voices of under 18s and the Young Greens are fully represented and engaged. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Kelsey. And now next question, over to you, Billy.
So this is to anyone who knows the answer, to be honest, but last conference you were mandated to bring a motion against the policing spokesperson, but obviously that didn't happen. I wondered why it didn't happen, and if you're going to pursue it further for spring conference, because you were mandated to for this conference.
Thank you for your question, Billy. I think Kelsey, your hand went up first. Jane, you also have yours up, so I'll come to you after.
Cheers, Isaac. Sorry, I jumped on this so quickly. Yeah, so I've mentioned it a little bit in my report, but I reckon it's quite long, and I'll sort of chat a little bit here. But so yeah, we were mandated at convention to take the motion on the policing and domestic safety spokesperson to autumn conference. That motion was so in my report I talked about. I rewrote the motion in the sense that I changed the wording so that it was appropriate for conference and not for the Young Greens convention and so forth, and added a little bit of evidence to support the case. And that was submitted on time and through the official channels. There has been, and I think I'll leave most of this to Jane, because she's dealt with the kind of aftermath of after we submitted the motion, but there's been some disagreement with SOC about submitting the The motion in terms of group proposals versus individual proposers, the form for motions at conference very clearly said that a group within the Green Party under which the Young Greens would fall could submit a motion. Whether the form was incorrect or I don't know, but that's not really the point. The form said that we could submit a motion without needing the normal 12, I think it's 12, although correct me if the number's wrong, it's been a while, proposers, and had then pushed back on that, saying that we needed to get 12 proposers despite what the form said. So there's been some disagreement, and obviously, as I'm sure you've noticed if you're following this, it didn't turn up on the prioritization ballot or on the agenda for that reason. So that's the situation that we're in, and I'll hand over to Jane, who might have a little more info on kind of the situation with SOC. But yeah, that's the general kind of state of play. But we were intending and took action to follow up on that mandate, so it wasn't just dropped.
And yeah, go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, thanks, Isaac. Not a huge amount to add on from what Kelsey said, but essentially it was submitted for conference. SOC have decided that apparently we don't constitute a group, or the form was wrong. We're not entirely sure what. I had a couple of emails with them, got incredibly frustrated with them. Not sure if it's a misunderstanding or not, but we're now aware of kind of why it didn't count, which is the fact that we should then be able to hopefully submit it for next conference, obviously with the agreement of the executive, because we weren't originally mandated to submit it for spring conference but for autumn conference. So it is frustrating, and I understand that, especially with things that the spokesperson has been saying recently. So I think we are still wanting to pursue this, but that will be a discussion with the exec. We're now aware of exactly what we need to do to make sure it does end up on conference floor, and kind of the pitfalls that can come when you're dealing with SOC.
Thank you for that, Jane. And yeah, I hope that answers all of your questions. We have some quick pre-submitted questions. So for the people answering these, for the first one, we'll go for some quick responses from Zach and Victoria, please. So with UCU strikes erupting on campuses across the UK, what role do you see Young Greens and our societies playing in these strikes, and what plans do you have in place to fulfill those roles? So whichever one of you puts your hand up first, or Jane, if you want to do a quick one on this.
Yeah, just coming from a trade union perspective. So I think we've been building links with the trade union group, and obviously UCU are a trade union, and it's really important that we have those strong links with them. So working with them to make sure that we know what actions we can be taking, how we can be supporting, and sort of replicating some of the stuff that the Green Students Committee did last year. So that was, I just wanted to jump in from the trade union perspective. I will leave the studency perspective to Vic or Zach.
Thank you, Jane. So over to you, Vic first, then Zach.
Lovely question. So we want to ensure that we contact Young Greens across the country and get them involved. We've been trying to get well, it's been an important priority for us to keep the groups and societies involved in across the country, and we've made like a nice database to get them all involved. So we will ensure that they're contacted and we have presence on the most places we can. And also I will be also getting more informed and contacting trade unions in the future to see what's the best way we can support them.
Thank you, Vic. And over to you, Zach.
Yeah, I think obviously we should be supporting it, but I think the way we should be supporting it should probably be, like Vic is saying, through the local groups. Like nationally, there's very little we can do when the strikes are going to be at individual universities. So I think mobilizing activists and the activist groups that we have near those universities or societies at those universities and helping and supporting them in supporting their local UCU branch, I think is probably the best way we can get involved with that.
Thank you very much, Zach. And I think we have 1 minute left for one more quick question for Kelsey and Jane, as you're both on GPEX. What actionable things do you hope to achieve in collaboration with the new Green Party leadership? Kelsey?
Yeah, of course, I'll take this first. Yeah, I mean, firstly, obviously we offer like our congratulations to the new leadership. It's an exciting time, new leaders. I think it's still early, sort of early days, but what we obviously always want to see and really hope that we can continue the work that we've done before is making sure that the voices of young people and students are really represented in the national parties, you know, in all aspects of the national party, and the leadership have obviously a huge role to play in comms and in our kind of external work. And so we're really excited to sort of work with them on that, and also to make the party's policy stance and our stance on liberation issues, which the Young Greens have always sort of committed to standing up for, really, really strong and really consistent. And that includes stamping out things like anti-Semitism and transphobia, along with other discrimination. Yeah, so that's the two things I would say.
Thank you very much, Kelsey. And do you have anything quick you'd like to add to, Jane? Or
the thing that I was going to add was that the notes that I wrote were literally what Kelsey just said. But yeah, no, Young Green Voices, working with them, particularly on GPEX, making sure that we're working with them, particularly around things like the budget, making sure that that's approved and that it's got budget allocated to the right places, particularly, you know, our budget, which is really important for us, and also on liberation issues, particularly around transphobia within GPEX, and also in the wider party. So yeah, what Kelsey said, because that's what I wrote down.
Fantastic. Well, that is a wrap on tonight's question and answer session. Thank you to all the members who came along to watch and to ask questions tonight, and to all the committee members who wrote reports and came along to answer your questions. I'm just going to hand over for a quick outro over to Kelsey and James. So over to you, Kelsey.
Thanks so much, and thanks so much, Isaac and Dan, and to DAC for running this event. It's been really great to hear about what everyone's up to, and just to have that all in one place. Just quickly, whilst we're finishing off, I'm sure most of you are fully aware that conference is on the way, and it'd be great to see Young Greens there and meet people in person, because that's now a thing. So if you haven't registered for conference, please do. I will pop a link into the chat for registering in a second. But yeah, please do come. The Young Greens will be there. We will hopefully have a stall. We're running a meeting at 1:30 on Saturday afternoon, so clear your diaries and be there. And we'll also have a social on the Saturday evening, so there'll be info about that coming out really, really shortly. So keep an eye on our socials and on our email list as well. But yeah, really hope to see you all at the conference, because as I think this event proves, internal democracy is super important, and it's also great to meet you all and to have a nice weekend away in Birmingham. And I'll hand over to Jane.
Yes, and on the note of internal democracy, this is your final reminder of the evening that DAC co-options are still open. So pester your friends, your family, your neighbour's cat, whoever you can think of that might be interested in those roles. We're obviously also going to be having co-options opening soon. We don't have a date yet, but they will be soon for the Trans Liberation Officer, and for digital comms as well. So please do apply for those, get your friends to apply for them as well. The final thing to mention is, obviously you've heard about all of the wonderful things that all of our committees are doing. If you want to know more, if you want to get involved, please do get in touch with us. All of our emails are up on the website. You can get in touch with us. The admin inbox is also there as well for you to get in touch with us. If you've got any new groups starting up, if you've got exciting campaigns that you want to tell us about, if you want support, particularly funding and money, because we can do that, please do get in touch with us. We love hearing from people. And yes, thank you all very much for coming, and enjoy your evenings, and we will see you all at conference. Woo, very exciting.
Thank you everyone.
Bye. Bye everyone.
Bye, thank you.